We say it every year. Same old Jets. New quarterback, new coach, new offensive coordinator, new number one future Hall of Fame wide receiver, and the same goddamn result. Steelers 37, Jets 15. The Jets fall to 2-5 on this miserable season, and their backs are all the way up against the wall when we talk about playoff hopes. Fingers being pointed, L's being tossed out. Another disaster on the road in Pittsburgh has you thinking, are the 2024 Jets finished once again before Halloween? We'll react to the loss and talk about the sad state of affairs with Gangrene as my buddy Rami Lavi of the Believe in Jets podcast will join me for a crossover episode of the Sick Podcast, Jets Flight Club. It's coming up next.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Jets Fight Club. The sickest New York Jets podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome back to the Sick Podcast, Jets Flight Club. Jake Brown here at Jake Brown Radio. Make sure you hit that like on YouTube. If you're watching, comment below. We appreciate the support. It's Jake Brown here, along in a minute with Rami Lavi of the Believe in Jets podcast. You know, I'm still on a down from the New York Mets. I almost can't even think about the Jets because, you know, the sadness mixed with euphoria of what was this Mets season quickly has brought down the shitter when you think of the Jets. They tried to change the quarterback and brought in a Hall of Famer. They tried to fire the head coach and bring in a new head coach. That was the defensive coordinator. They tried to trade for his best friend, Aaron Rodgers, and Davante Adams. They, before the game, decide to finally agree to a deal with Hassan Reddick, who likely will make his Jets debut when they play the Patriots next Sunday. But in the end, it's the same garbage result from the team with the longest drought in the history of sports. And they're well on their way to making it yet another season. That's 2011. Let's start there. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. 14 years without a playoff berth. If they continue down the trajectory that they're on. The same mistakes every week, the same finger pointing every week, and the same collapses every week from a team that looked like they're on the edge of victory, only to be snatched the jaws of defeat, whatever the goddamn saying is. They go up 15-6 with the Tyler Conklin 1-yard touchdown, which, by the way, almost didn't happen if Jeff Ulbrich knew how to actually throw a challenge flag. He basically dropped it on the sidelines. It didn't make it onto the field, and neither did the football team. The red flag was on the sidelines, and so was the entire 53-man roster. And if that flag gets on the field, the Jets probably don't punch it home from 1 yard because that's their kryptonite. But because Ulbrich, Saleh might have cost them the touchdown. Maybe it's a changing of the guard. Ulbrich didn't cost them a touchdown. And they get the 2-point conversion. 15-6 Jets, and you're feeling good. But you know it was going to change. If you told anyone, even Jets naysayers, Jets haters, that the score is 15-6 with 30 seconds left in the first half, and then you told them the final score, they would still be surprised how ugly this became. Now, of course, they end the half like they usually do, poorly. Last week was a rare ending of the half with a good thing with the Hail Mary, which was, again, pure luck. And Pickens gets a touchdown, 15-13, 15-13. Then it's 16-15. Then it's 23-15. And you're thinking, all right, well, they only need a touchdown. All right, they go for a field goal. Blocked. Still 23-15. Touchdown Van Jefferson with his pops his coach on the other sideline 30-15. And then Najee Harris putting the icing on the cake just for fun with a 10-yard touchdown run with 26 seconds to go. Jets lose 37-15. What else can you say? Aaron Rodgers has not, like, the prior weeks, I think many of us said, you know what, this isn't on Rodgers. Look at the penalties. The defense, again, the defense sucked today. They give up 149 yards on the ground. They make Russell Wilson look like the Seahawks Super Bowl Russell Wilson, making them forget about Justin Fields after a forgettable first half, carving them up in the second half. Run game, carving them up. And once again, they get demolished. And a season that could be a team we were talking about that's 5-2, that's 4-3, is the other side, 2-5. They will now have to go likely 8-2 the rest of the season to make the playoffs. At the very worst, 7-3. And by God, if you think this team can go 8-2, I don't know what you're smoking, but we might need a hit of it, because it would take a miracle for the Jets now to make the playoffs in a season where that was the bare minimum. Just same old Jets. You know, I woke up this morning thinking about both. You know, the Mets are first on my mind. I'm thinking about the Jets, and it is a one-sided relationship. We keep coming back to this garbage franchise year after year, and they want us to keep coming to that shitty stadium. That's an absolute dog pile dump of a stadium with horrible food, horrible parking, horrible seating options, expensive seating options. And they have the audacity to charge PSLs, raise ticket prices, give the fans nothing in return. And it is one franchise that I root for out of all my franchises, where at times, and I thought this morning, I think about quitting. I think about leaving. And they have quickly dropped down my depth chart of favorite teams. The Mets, despite the loss, are way up at the top. The Knicks have surpassed the Jets. The Knicks are number 2. The Jets are 3. But at some point, they might go to 4, and the Rangers might pass them. And I'm not even a huge hockey guy. They give you no reason to keep coming back. What an utter disgrace. What, considering all the expectations that we freaking had for these guys. Just a disgrace. Jake Brown Radio, Sick Podcast, Jets Flight Club. I want Rami Lavi to come in and vent his thoughts, because he did a good Mets, inspirational video that got me teary-eyed, scrolling through TikTok this morning. That was a mix of tears of joy and sadness with what the Mets have done for me. But the Jets have brought me back. Not even the Mets had like good sadness. The Jets have just been I want to punch someone in the face sadness, Rami. And I know you're feeling kind of the same way. It's frustrating. He hosts the Believe in Jets podcast with Bilal Powell. Rami, vent out your thoughts. You heard me ramble on. I want you to vent. And while I eat some of this leftover rice from last night, I want you to ramble your Jets thoughts and opinions.
I mean, it's just nothingness. That's the whole problem with this team. Like, you want to feel something, right? You want to feel some kind of way. Like, they give you some sort of hope. Despite the terrible start to the season, 2-4, firing the head coach, all the things that have gone on, from Reddick holding out to now him showing up, the trade for Devontae Adams. Now Mike Williams wants out, although he made one of the biggest catches of the game, while it still felt like there was a game to be had, which I was shocked. I was shocked he even saw the field. You wanted to have some sense of a season. And the fact that this year is more disappointing than last year, which essentially ended 4 plays in, and somehow they outdid themselves this year. And if they would have won last night, you're like, all right, 3-4, the Patriots coming up. You start to convince yourself that maybe there's a chance they turn the season around. Reddick's coming back. Maybe Devontae was the missing piece on the offense. You see how it opened up the field for Brees. You see how it opened up the field for Garrett Wilson. And up 15-6, you're feeling pretty good. You have the ball. All the Jets need to do is not even score. Just run out the clock to end the first half. Even if they didn't score, 3 would have been ideal. A touchdown obviously would have been better. But even if they just run out the clock to end the first half and get the ball back to start the second half, nothing bad can happen. Instead, Rodgers throws a terrible pick that turns into 7 the other way. And then all of a sudden the ball gets rolling from there. And that was 31 unanswered points for the Steelers. And the Jets never recovered. They never recovered from that. And now apparently they still have a 47% chance to make the playoffs according to analytics, which is just crazy to me because I've watched this team. They're not going 8-2, like you said. They're not going 7-3. Their 2 wins are against 2 of the bottom 3 teams in the NFL. They beat the Patriots and the Titans. That's it. This team actually sucks. And when I keep saying it on my podcast, on the Believe in Jets podcast, it's whack-a-mole with this team. When the offensive line plays well, it'll be the penalties that get you. If Rodgers is playing well, a guy will have a big drop. And then if all else is going well, if they're doing everything right, just when you need the defense to really step up after they've held it together for so long, they fall apart. Last night, the secondary was just decimated with injury, so that was what happened there. But just same old Jets. It's every Jets season we've watched our entire lives. And it seems like the higher the expectations get, the more they just disappoint you in the end.
Yeah, and for a team that we talked about, we uttered the word Super Bowl with this team. Rodgers is concerning because not only has his play been subpar to below subpar, not only has he made interceptions, you hear things like this. Aaron Rodgers said he felt the Jets' energy was flat before the game and at halftime. Said he has to be better at changing that. Flat before the game? It's Sunday Night Football against the Steelers in a game that you got to win. How is the energy flat? And I'm worried that he's finished. I'm worried that his career, the year away, the injury, everything off the field, the distractions, his age, it's all caught up to him. And the Jets ended up with maybe a worser version of late in his career, Brett Favre. Brett Favre came here. At least they went, 9-7? They lost the playoffs in the final game. They lost out of making the playoffs. They almost got a much worse version of Favre late in his career, similar because the Packer connection, the guy that replaced him, they've got the Packers rejects. It's like the Packers have this curse over the Jets. You get Favre, he comes here, they suck. You get Aaron Rodgers, he comes here, they suck. I mean, who's next? Are we getting a Jordan Love in 15 years and he's going to suck at the back end of his career? Something about these Packer rejects, Rami. And, we could say, I'm not going to even do a preview show of the Patriots game. I don't have the energy, my mental bandwidth. I need a break from this Mets ending. But even if they win this game, if they lose this game, it's officially over. And you could, we might as well cancel all Jets podcasts if they lose to the Patriots. But even if they win this game, you just can't imagine them putting a run together. It just seems like not a band of brothers. It seems like a guy, everyone raved about Rodgers when he came in the building, but he never really played in a game. And now that he's played in games, it's almost like he's created enemies and almost like they're not playing for each other. They're not playing for the team on the front. They're playing for the name on the back.
And that's what it's felt like for Rodgers since he showed up. You talk about him not playing with everyone and kind of the energy being low. It felt like this season was almost like about his story. He's coming out with a Netflix documentary. It's his redemption from coming back from the injury and the record time pace that he came back in and all that. So he's made it about himself. And guess what? The team reflects that. There isn't an energy. It's the Aaron Rodgers show. And he has no one left to blame. So he's looking around. What else can I blame, right? I blame the head coach. I blame the offensive coordinator. I blame the wide receivers. Who else could I have? I've talked about the running backs. Who else could I blame? I guess I'll say the energy was low. That's what it felt like after that game. And yes, even if they beat the Patriots, this team has to play nearly flawless football the rest of the way to have a chance at making the playoffs. They have to be great the rest of the way. And the problem is when you put a team like this in a situation when there's no margin for error, then all of a sudden a drop by Garrett Wilson, which is a huge drop. I'm not saying it was fine, but the point is one drop changes everything because when the margin for error is that slim, every error is maximized. Every error becomes a huge gut punch, a blow that you cannot overcome. And right now the Jets, the margin for error is 0. And this team is not good enough to play with a margin of error of 0.
Yeah, I mean, when you got stars like Garrett Wilson making big drops and mistakes that lead to turnovers, you're doomed. When your leading receiver is Breece Hall, 6'103", sometimes that's good. More times than not, that's bad. That means there were short dump offs that he created plays out of. Devontae Adams comes here. I know he's on a short week, whatever. 3 catches on 9 targets. And that, I don't think that's really on Devontae. I think a lot of those throws were really bad by Aaron Rodgers, but
wasn't the first play indicative? That very first play, they knew what they were running to Devontae, and just the throw's a little off. He drops it, and we go from there.
So much for the love connection. I mean, there was no connection. That's like some first dates I've been on, where you second you meet them, they either don't look like their picture, they mention how much they hate sports or hate baseball, and the rest of the night sucks. That's what it felt like. And maybe it's one that you met years ago and you try to rekindle the romance years later. I've had that too. Second time didn't work either. Well, that's what it feels like. Or maybe you did have a great romance like they did in Green Bay. You break up, you try to get back together, you realize you're miserable together, and that's what it feels like. There's a lot of dumb analogies that can be made, but that's what it felt like. I mean, 3 catches on 9 targets. Garrett Wilson, 5 catches on 9 targets. Breece Hall, 6 catches, 9 targets. They were throwing their way, but, nothing was coming back. And like you said, Mike Williams made the big catch, but, this Mike Williams situation, even after, I don't know if you saw this when he made the catch, and it's very indicative of just the mood with this team. He looked to the sideline and they called him back, and he immediately put his head down and was like demoralized to come out of the game. Instead of just saying like, let's go, big play, he's like, me. I want to stay in this game. Should he maybe staying in? Sure. But just that aura of you made a big catch, you get called to the sideline, and you're moping over because they're taking you out of the game. Like, be happy you made a play for the team and just go to the sideline, cheer, get the guys going. Just across the board, the energy, the mood, Rami, is just piss poor. And a lot of that comes from coaching. Jeff Ulbrich here is in a tough spot. Being a defensive coordinator and a head coach at the same time is not easy. Robert Saleh is a defensive-minded guy who didn't have to call the plays defensively. He was just head coach. He was very bad at it. Jeff Ulbrich is a defensive coordinator, has not been a coach besides the Senior Bowl, and is trying to do kind of 2 jobs at once, being put in a tough spot, while also in the back of his mind thinking this is an audition for me to maybe become a head coach here or elsewhere when this season is over. And all those things lead into him dropping challenge flags, which saved the Jets, led to a touchdown. But you got to feel here for Jeff Ulbrich. He's in a tough spot. I believe he's a leader of men. I believe he's a good guy and a good coach. But if your team is not going to show effort and your quarterback is going to say the energy was lacking, I don't know if that's a reflection on the head coach, it's a reflection on the team, or it's a reflection on your future Hall of Fame quarterback.
Well, at this point, it's on the players because they've changed everything around them, and the players have not done anything. They haven't responded to anything. And as far as Jeff Ulbrich, I don't know if you heard Chris Collinsworth on the broadcast going like, Saleh's such a great guy. He talks to Ulbrich every day on the phone. Well, maybe stop talking to Saleh because maybe he's still rubbing off on the team. The way he did things clearly didn't work. So maybe Ulbrich, you got to block that number and stop talking to Robert Saleh, because if that's what's holding you back, I could see that being the case here. But no, honestly, I think Jeff Ulbrich, because it's an audition, he doesn't want to get in guys' faces. He doesn't want to overdo it on the sideline, and that could be holding him back too. He is a hard-nosed guy, a tougher guy, and we saw this with Saleh. We saw him running up and down the sideline, yelling in San Francisco, and then all of a sudden he comes here and just loitering, standing there doing nothing on the sidelines during Jet games, and it's like, wait, what happened to the guy from San Francisco? What happened to the guy we fell in love with out there? The guy we hired, and we see Saleh's not the same guy. I wonder if Ulbrich is kind of taking the step back. Like, he even said, that, I need to wear the cap forward now. Can't wear the backwards cap. I'm the head coach now. No, don't think of it that way. Just be you. Be what got you there. Keep the backwards hat. Shove the pencil up or whatever that marker is that he puts in the cap, kind of like the old guy from New England, defensive coordinator Matt Patricia. But just be yourself. And unfortunately, it feels like this team is always trying. It's from the beginning. You talked about it at the beginning of the episode, the Super Bowl conversation and all the Super Bowl expectations. They felt like they were trying to be something they're not, instead of just trying to band together and be a team that goes on a run. And unfortunately, now it's too late. Now the season's over. And the fact that it's over before Halloween, I mean, come on, like with this team, just over before the Yankee season is over before the Knicks season even started, like couldn't get us to Knicks basketball, couldn't even get us to Christmas, and it's just mind-boggling.
The Christmas, Thanksgiving, they barely got us through Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day. I don't want to get canceled for calling it Columbus. They barely got us through the first holiday in October. And yes, it's not officially over. We're aware. We know that they can go on a run and something can happen, but there's just nothing we see. You made a good point about Ulbrich. Like, it does, maybe he's trying to be someone he's not. And like The defensive coordinator, Ulbrich, people love. Maybe the head coach, Ulbrich, they don't like as much. Solid completely changed his mood when he's head coach. He wasn't rah-rah anymore. So it's almost like that position. We know the pressure that comes along with it. We know the spotlight. We know they're thinking during the game, how am I going to answer this? With the media after the game. And all those things, the pressure seems to have got the best of these guys. Whoever steps in as head coach fails, from Gase to Saleh to Bowles to now Ulbrich. And, they're lucky they got the Patriots on the schedule this week. The other issue is that 4 days later, they got to play a Houston Texans team that the way the Jets defense is playing, Joe Mixon and CJ Stroud are going to light them up. And that's on Halloween. Halloween could mark the official end of the Jets season, because that could be their 6th loss, which would mean they would have to go 7-1 the rest of the season. They have to go 8-2 to get to 10 wins. Let's say 9 gets you in the. I haven't done a deep dive on the wild card standings, but let's say 9 gets you in. That would mean 7-3. I don't think 9 is going to get you in, but let's say 7-3 gets you in. You still, if you win next week and lose on Halloween, would have to go 6-2, something like that. So it's too much math to do right now. It's too early in the day, but Halloween could mark the beginning of the end of the Jets season. And, this shouldn't be happening every year. Like Woody Johnson, Jets fans want his head. It starts from the top. And I think from the top, the Jets ownership is incompetent. And they gave Rodgers every wish. They granted all of his wishes. He's like a genie. He made 3 wishes. He said, I want Saleh fired. I want Devontae Adams. What's the 3rd wish going to be? I don't know, but they need help. And, we talk about the offense a lot. This defense is getting shredded. I mean, they can't stop the run, Rami. No matter who they're running. It started with Jordan Mason. This week it's Najee Harris. But they are getting carved up on the run. And I just don't know that having Hassan Reddick, who shows up and who knows what kind of shape he's in. He could have been cosplaying for the last 2 months. We don't know if he's been working out. I don't think he's going to help that. I think he'll help put pressure on the quarterback, but I don't know if he's stopping the run at all. And I don't know if that one player is going to make that big a difference. And also, look how many injuries they were dealing with. Like, bodies are falling left and right on this defense, where there's guys you didn't even know were on the roster were in this game last night. I mean, I hadn't heard of some of these guys. Bodies are falling. And if this team continues to lose, business decisions by Halloween are going to be made. And when October business decisions are made by players, your season is officially in the books.
Yeah, and with Hassan Reddick, he just has to show up at this point so that he could not have the same situation repeat on him next year with the contract, where the Jets would have his rights again for next year. So he's showing up just because he has to. Who's to say that he doesn't show up and fake an injury 1 week in, or slow play it, or kind of half-ass it because he feels like it? And you talk about it starting from the top. Well, you saw it with the Mets, right? Steve Cohen takes over. He hands over baseball operations. It took him a couple of years, but hands it over completely to David Stearns. And all of a sudden, the operation goes from there. Everyone on the same page, whether it's Cohen to Stearns to Mendoza to Lindor to the rest of the team. You look at the Knicks, the same thing, right? Dolan gives it over to Wes and to Leon Rose, and they hire Tibbs, and they bring in Brunson, and just one unit putting all the decisions together, and the owner stays out of it. When you have the owner on the field saying, oh, I spoke to Hassan Reddick's agent, I got him here, I said we needed to pull the trigger on the Devontae Adams trade because it's desperation time. I was the one. I solely made the decision to fire Robert Saleh. By the way, he was the one to solely make the decision to hire Robert Saleh. He was the one to draft Zach Wilson. He was the one to trade for Aaron Rodgers. So when you have the owner who keeps meddling, and kind of like Bill Belichick said, right? Fire, aim, shoot, or fire, shoot, aim, just throwing it out there. Oh, here's what I feel like today. Here's what I feel like today. It's not working out, and it's never going to change as long as he's there as the owner of this team. And that's unfortunate. You talk about the Mets, and you think about maybe there's a parallel to the Mets season here, right? If you're a Mets fan, you're thinking maybe there's a parallel. And if you're, by the way, if you're trying to find some Mets fans, just go through the comments of that video. Some sad, sentimental Mets fans in that comments, but of that I posted. But you think back to that the Mets season and how low it got, 11 games under 500, 0-5 to start the season. Maybe that's where the Jets are right now, right? That's what people are thinking. No, it's not the same. This is the point where we still have Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander as hired mercenaries who are killing us. That's what Aaron Rodgers is right now. That's the point in the Mets version of this season where we are. We're not at the point where we go on a magical run the rest of the way. That's not happening with this team. This team is incapable of that. And you said, oh, maybe there's a chance. And again, there's a 47% chance. So maybe that means that 9 wins will make it. If they're saying there's a 47% chance of them making the playoffs, I don't buy it. The season is cooked. And now we're just thinking about what happens next year. Is Aaron Rodgers staying, or are they blowing it up? Joe Douglas is probably out the door, and he's probably relieved to be out the door. Like I said, who wants to be in a position where your boss keeps going over you every single time you try and make a move? So it's just infuriating. And it's the same thing we've seen over and over and over again with this franchise. My entire life, your entire life, it hasn't changed. If you're 55 years old, it hasn't changed your entire life.
Yeah, Woody Johnson. He decides the jerseys. He tweets out the jerseys. He wears his stupid chain.
Oh my God.
It's always about Woody, and I know he reads through Twitter because my old co-host would tell me. My old co-host would talk with his brother Chris. Chris Johnson would listen to the Gangs All Here podcast. He'd listen because he knew about Hot Boy Summer. I mentioned Hot Boy Summer, and then I hear about Chris Johnson saying, "What is Hot Boy Summer?" So they listen to some of these podcasts. They listen to what the fans are saying. And sometimes that leads you out the door. And unfortunately, they're never going to be out the door. Owner sucks. GM was one that we kind of hugged. We loved him. I was like my bald brother, Joe Douglas. I don't like Joe Douglas anymore. Sorry. He's a terrible GM. Don't like the GM. Don't like the owner. They're going to have to probably find a new head coach. And Rodgers is interesting because we talked about, man, I hope he's here for 2 or 3 years. If this season continues the way it does and the Jets finish 6-11, the noises are going to get louder and louder of let's move on from him and just move, go in a new era. While his ego is so big and 40 to 50 million a year sounds so nice to him to play one more year, he might want to go one more year. And then you're going to have Jet fans who once were clamoring for him, like us, for multiple years saying, nah, we don't want you anymore. Like, that's crazy, the turn this has taken. He's got time here. He's got Hassan Reddick coming here. I'll try to spin it the positive way. He's got Devontae Adams a week under his belt. He has all the talent offensively. Those guys are healthy. And prayers up Xavier Newman. Glad he was moving. That was a scary moment. This offensive line definitely has to play better. We didn't mention them. They got to play better. The run game has still essentially almost been non-existent. Brees had a better game, but he really only had a couple good runs. They ended up with 54 rushing yards. It's unreal how the run game has just disappeared from the Jets, and it starts up front. It starts with the run, and they haven't got it. They've been getting pounded week after week by teams of the run. But if you want to look at a positive, is the talent is still there, and that's what we've looked at all year. That's what we looked at coming to the season. We looked at on paper, this team can win. On paper, this depth chart, this. You look at the depth chart, you were salivating coming into this week. Devontae one side, Garrett the other, Lazard in the slot, Mike Williams in the slot. You got 4 good receivers. You got a tight end. You got a star running back. You got a Hall of Fame quarterback. How could they lose? Well, they showed you they can still lose. But, Rami, if we want to, let's try and say one. It's like one of those videos. Say one positive thing about Yankee fans. Like MLB got me like, would you date a Yankee fan? I'm like, yeah, I would, as long as they like baseball and they won't hate the Mets. Say one positive. My positive is this, is that the talent is there. You hope they learn from this. And there are still 10 games left. So, as a Met fan, I've seen it with my own eyes. Completely different. I can't say a closed-door meeting and a Latin pop star coming into the locker room is going to save the Jets right now because they don't have one. I don't know if Sauce Gardner is going to make a #1 rap song. I don't know. Maybe they need it. But my positive is this. 10 games left. Devontae Adams said we need to nut up. The guy who's been here a week should not have to be saying we need to nut up. Aaron Rodgers and the other guys need to say it. I know Garrett Wilson has held himself accountable. He basically said that play cost them the game. He's one guy who's looked at a leader, and you shouldn't really have a second-year leader. But 10 games left. You can right the ship. The Mets did it from June 1st on. They wrote the ship, and they went 2 wins away from the World Series. If the Jets could even get in the playoffs at this point, fans will instantly be satisfied from where it was. So you have the time, you have the talent. The question is, do you have the cojones? Do you have the heart? Will you play for each other? That's what the Jets are going to have to find out in these last 10.
Yeah, and Aaron Rodgers, here's the positive. He still pretty much looks like Aaron Rodgers on most plays, I'll say. He has some bad throws for sure that we're not used to seeing. Sometimes the steps in the pocket or outside the pocket look a little choppy, but I still see Aaron Rodgers in there, and it's better than any quarterback play the Jets have had in my lifetime, probably. Despite all the negative that he's had, he's still been really, really good and better than any other Jets quarterback. So the positive I'll give you is when they were up 15-6 and they were driving down the field at the end of the first half, and I thought they were going to at least score to end the first half and then come out and score to start the second half. In my mind, I was thinking, man, this is what a real football team looks like. They can't stop them on offense. Who can compete with this team in the AFC? Nobody. I watch the Chiefs. Their offense can't keep up with this Jets offense if they're this high flying. You have to choose your poison, right? Pick your poison. Are you going to stop Brees? Are you going to stop Garrett? Are you going to stop Adams? Are you going to stop Lazard? And Rodgers out there was making all the right decisions. They're driving down the field. This offense is the most prolific offense in the AFC. That's what I was thinking. And the defense just has to be solid. Reddick coming back. All he needs is a couple big plays late in games, get some pressure on the quarterback. All of a sudden, it's a different story. Then obviously it falls apart. The back-to-back interceptions. Obviously, the defense just gets decimated with injuries in the secondary, and we know how it goes. But that's the point. If this offense looks like this for the next 10 weeks, they could go 10-0. And they have all their games are on the East Coast. Only 2 of the 10 games are against teams over 500. And that's why there's still a 47% chance of them making the playoffs. Because despite everything that they've done, despite the hole that they've dug themselves, and maybe that's even the more frustrating part, they've dug themselves this hole. And had they not dug themselves this hole, they'd be set up in a great position. If they were just 3-3 or 3-4 right now, right? If they were just 3-4 right now, they'd be in a great position the rest of the season with 10 games left, only 2 of them against winning teams. You'd think this is a team that could possibly win 10, 11 games. Instead, we're hoping they get to 9 or 10.
Yeah, the last 2 spots are 3-2 and 4-3 for the playoffs. So I mean, they're right there, still in the race,
right there, and that's the frustrating part, because by the time we get to Sunday, maybe it's not Sunday, maybe Sunday we're still disappointed, but then they beat the Patriots. By the time we get to Thursday, we'll be pulled back in, and God damn it, if they win on Thursday, and all of a sudden you're like, oh God, here we go again. They're 4-5 going into the long week after the Texans game. All of a sudden we'll be bought back in. So I don't know what to tell you. I don't believe that that's going to happen, but anything's
it has
possible,
to.
I guess.
You know, it has to have. The Jets have to enter November 4-5 at this point. The Texans are good, but you can beat them. Like if you play the brand of football we thought we would see this year,
call Jordan Love.
Them. Yeah,
he just beat them.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about 2 quarterbacks going completely different ways. Jordan Love looks like the Hall of Famer. Aaron Rodgers looks like the has-been right now.
Well, don't worry. We'll have Jordan Love, like you said, in 15 years.
Just I'll see you in 15 years. Maybe I'll be married with kids by then. I'll probably be like a car salesman at that point. But, you know, the other one, the AFC being bad is what pisses you off, that you're right there. 2, you look at the schedule. It's not crazy, but any game looks crazy for the Jets. Like, I won't even be happy. They'll beat the Patriots. I'll have zero emotion. The Texans game, they win. They'll probably reel me back in if they win the next 2. But you know, I hate to keep schedule watching, but the Cardinals beatable, Colts beatable, Seahawks beatable, Dolphins, we don't know who their quarterback is, beatable. Jaguars have been one of the worst teams in the NFL, beatable. Rams have been one of the worst teams in the NFL, beatable. Bills game they'll lose, and then Dolphins home to close the season. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You have 8 games on the schedule that going into the season you would have been favored. Right now you probably won't be, but you have 8 games where you would be favored. That's the 8 wins you need to get to the playoffs. So if there's one silver lining, is you win those 8 games, you get in. Unfortunately, it ain't that easy, and nothing comes easy for this Jets team. I won't preview the Pats game. I think we both agree that they should win, and we sure hope they win, or we're going to be jumping off a local cliff if they find a way to lose to the Pats. In the chat, Armand's in there. Hello, there's a reflection on Woody. What a disgusting performance last night. Hassan Reddick and his agent Drew Rosenhaus are now in the building per Schefter. Oh, finally.
I saw Schefter tweet that. Yeah, they're preparing for Sunday.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know what Drew Rosenhaus is doing to prepare.
He's probably watching his every move, making sure he doesn't try too hard, making sure he doesn't get hurt so he can get his next contract and get that 10%. He's probably saying, you know, don't run that hard. I mean, Hassan probably won't have a problem not trying hard. He's not very much a try hard player, and it was recorded as that in Philadelphia, as that he kind of, you know, called his own plays towards the end of the season. They are not a team, just a collection of talent. I don't believe in the Jets. I'll most likely be dead by then. I want them to lose more for more chaos. I don't want them to lose more. Like
No.
the Mets losing already broke my heart enough. Like I'm hoping the Knicks are good.
It's not even chaos at this point if they lose, because you just become apathetic. You just stop caring.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at with the Jets.
If they get to like 2-9, I'm just gonna. It sounds bad. I'm gonna cancel this podcast. The Jets Flight Club will end. I will not cover the team the rest of the year. I had to deal with it with my old co-host for 4 years. It was a lot of misery. I was already miserable, and then you add someone else who's miserable. It was double misery. I can't do a 5th year of utter misery all over again. So make it a season, guys. Show up, do something. You can follow Rami Lavi. What's your Twitter again? Rami_Lavi.
Yeah. There we go. Rami, RAMI_LAVI.
And he hosts Believe in Jets. Subscribe to that podcast with him and Bilal Powell. Man, it's not even Halloween. It's not even. The Jets are wearing their jerseys as their Halloween costume. They're showing up on Halloween as none other than themselves because they're clowns. The circus starts in East Rutherford at that shithole of a stadium. Go eat a chicken finger with even their barbecue sauce sucks at MetLife Stadium. They can't even give me good sauce. Sauce Gardner, barbecue sauce. If you're a honey mustard, it's all the standard cheap, shitty sauce at that shitty $1 billion stadium that doesn't have the roof. The weather always sucks. The parking lots are so confusing. It doesn't even go in alphabetical order. Somebody explain that to me, how you get from J to A. Like, the lot's confusing. The FanDuel Sportsbook is ratchet as hell. That whole place is just an absolute dumpster fire. And it doesn't help that the team inside of it is also a dumpster fire. Good God. How are we going to do this? Rami, sorry about that. Thank you for...
I'm with you, man. I like
it. You're numb to it. We're numb to it at this point. It's year after year. We really thought this year would be different, but maybe the positive is that they're at least showing us early that it will not be different. That we won't have. I mean, luckily Thanksgiving is a bye, so we won't have to worry about missing time with our family to watch the Jets because they're giving us. Let's be thankful to the schedule gods for not having them. They'll ruin our Halloween, Rami, but they're not going to ruin our Thanksgiving.
Oh, I hope not. Yes. And I'm just happy I gave up my season tickets this year. That's like the bottom line. And that's what Woody Johnson, if you want to hear how the state of the Jets fan, like you said, Woody Johnson listens. He listens to WFAN. He listens to Sports Talk Radio. He listens to these podcasts. I gave up my season tickets coming into this year because I knew nothing would change. And people are like, what? This is the year. They're going to go to the playoffs. You're going to miss it. No, it's never the year. It's always disappointment. And they treat you like shit just their sales reps are terrible. Their hosts are everything from the top down. It stinks the organization, the franchise, the team, the players. Everything stinks about this organization. And I'm going to talk to Bilal Powell on the Believe in Jets podcast tomorrow. We'll see what he says because he's been in it. I don't know what he says. Guy who's been there, but he's a fan now. And he told me being a fan of this team is almost worse than playing for the team.
He's not wrong. And, give up your season tickets. I'm sorry. I don't care if you do it for pride because your dad passed them on your grandfather. Give them up. Show this team they don't deserve your hard-earned money. I always thought season tickets were a sham anyway because the secondary market, they're like $2 a day of the game. Like, it's much cheaper if you get them on the secondary market and for better seats. So I was never someone who ever would get season tickets, but give the tickets up. Do what Rami did. Do not buy season tickets for this team. If you decide to go to a game, you can always get it day of, either on Ticketmaster or on the secondary market.
Don't buy a new jersey. Don't buy the new logo with the new sweatshirts. Don't buy anything until this team turns it around.
My jerseys are all from thrift shops. It's like Lavernius Coles. It's like my Dustin Keller one I wear. I don't wear a new one because they're gone. Like, if you were to get Rodgers right now, this fan's burning Rodgers jerseys already. Like, he's been very unlikable with his comments off the field and his political stuff, all that. He's already been very unlikable. Add in the fact that they're 2-5, and he's quickly becoming more unlikable as the weeks go on. And at some point, the only finger he's going to have to point to is himself. And
he'll retire at the end of the year, and he'll say, "Oh, this was a blip on the radar. This is a dysfunctional organization. I came here. I tried to change it. I tried to do my part, and they just didn't. They didn't help themselves, and this is their fault." And peace out. I was never a Jet. my Packers years. Let's remember me for my 4 MVPs and all that.
Yep. He'll deflect the blame like he always does. Well, thanks everybody for listening. Make sure you subscribe wherever you get podcasts. Make sure you give us a thumbs up below. Give us a like, comment, subscribe to Jets Flight Club. Subscribe to Believe in Jets. Rami, now I'm going to go on Mets Magic, and I might cry on there. I want to do this first, so I didn't cry first and then go on here, but I'm going to go cry now, and then I'll cry more later because I'm a Jets fan.
At least they make you feel something. At least the Mets make you feel something. I feel nothing with this Jets team.
That's how I woke up when I thought about. Obviously Mets were my first, so I thought about the Jets, and I just felt numb and nothing. I was just like, it's the same thing every year, and we're like robots at this point. We're just like scheduled to go watch them again and come back next year and
right. That's
go
the
to the
worst
home
part.
opener. It's like
the worst part.
I
about
will
the season
go
being
to
over
game.
Right now. Yeah,
it's
the worst part is that you have to watch them for 10 more games. Like I wish the season was just over.
Right? Like if they said we're ending the season and end it today and then the Knicks start tomorrow, that would raise my spirits almost for the Mets. I'd say, thank you, Lord. It's over. Season. Like just disband them from the NFL. If you said, Jake, they are disbanding the Jets from the NFL, I would be happy at this point. I would switch to the Giants, to be honest. I'd be fine with that. I root for the Giants too anyway. So it's fine with me. I mean, they're just crazy. I mean, what a bad out. Let's give a clap to the New York Liberty for winning their first title. That was the silver lining for New York sports. They won a title. I know it's not as popular, but WNBA did get some good ratings this year.
The people in the building, that looked like a great scene.
Well, it's the best atmosphere they've ever had because the Nets never even made an Eastern Conference Finals. So yeah, I would have loved to be there, but thanks to the Liberty, but no thanks to the Jets, the Mets, the Giants. But thank you for the Mets for an emotional ride. Rami, thanks for coming on the show.
I appreciate you, dude. Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll talk after Jets Patriots next week. Thanks for watching and listening to the Sick Podcast. Jets Flight Club, Jake Brown Radio, signing out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast, Jets Fight Club on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.